Most people think being able to fix everything is a matter of intelligence. But if you look closely at the people who always seem to find a solution, you'll notice something strange. They almost never react from panic. Not because they don't feel pressure, not because they know exactly what to do, but because at some point in their life, they learned one thing. Problems can be touched. And once you learn that, you move through the world differently. Some people, when something breaks, freeze. The car starts making a strange noise. The computer stops working. A conversation begins to get out of control. A problem appears, and almost instantly, something inside them shuts down. Then there are other people. They look at the problem. They stay quiet for a few seconds, and then they start doing something. They don't always know how to fix it, but they act as if a solution is possible. And from the outside, it can look almost like a superpower. Because while one person feels anxiety, the other feels curiosity. And the strange thing is, these people are not always the smartest, not always the most prepared, not even the most experienced. So what do they actually have? In the late 1970s, psychologist Albert Bandura talked about something called self-efficacy. In simple terms, it means this: the deep belief that you can handle what is in front of you. Not empty optimism, not motivational phrases, but an inner feeling of, I've solved things before. I can try to solve this too. And that belief completely changes how someone responds to chaos. Because when you believe you can influence the outcome, your brain doesn't enter defeat mode as quickly. You persist longer. You tolerate frustration better. You think more clearly under pressure. And the longer you stay with a problem, trying to understand it, the better your chances of solving it. It sounds obvious, but almost nobody thinks about this. Many people don't fail because they are incapable. They fail because their nervous system gives up too early. And usually, this starts much earlier than we imagine. It starts in small moments. A child trying to fix something for the first time. A cable. A door. A broken toy. A computer that stopped working. And then, suddenly, it works. That moment may look insignificant, but psychologically, it is huge. Because the brain records something important, I can intervene in the world and change what happens. And once someone learns that, they never look at problems the same way again. Bandura called these mastery experiences. Small experiences where you do something and see a result. And according to decades of research, they are one of the strongest sources of psychological confidence. Not someone telling you that you are capable, you proving it to yourself. Because there is a huge difference between hearing something and experiencing it. And this connects to another important psychological idea, locus of control, a concept studied by Julian Rotter. It basically asks one simple question. Do you believe things depend on your actions? Or do you believe things simply happen to you? People with an internal locus of control feel that they can influence their life, not control everything, but move things. And interestingly, these people tend to handle stress better. They persist more. They recover faster from failure. And they are less likely to develop long depressive states. Because when you believe nothing depends on you, the world starts to feel impossible to move. And this is where many stories split. Some people learned this in safe environments. Parents who let them try, who didn't solve everything for them, who taught them how to think. But other people learned the exact same lesson from the opposite side. Because nobody was there. And they had to figure out how to solve things alone. Two completely different roads, ending in the same place. But there is something important people rarely say about those who fix everything. From the outside, they look secure. But many times, they don't feel secure at all. They simply learned to tolerate uncertainty. And that changes everything. Most people need to know quickly that everything will be okay. They need certainty, guarantees, control. And when they don't have that, anxiety appears. But people who know how to fix things are often able to stay inside the "I don't know yet." They can remain in that uncomfortable space longer without collapsing. And that ability is rare. Because fixing something almost always means spending time not fully understanding what is happening. And many people interpret that feeling as danger. But other people interpret it as a process, as a puzzle. And I want to say something important here. Some people who seem capable of solving everything did not learn that from calm. They learned it from survival. Some people became the strong one very early, the responsible one, the one who solved emotional problems at home, the one who had to keep order, the one who felt that making mistakes was not safe. And over time, their brain turned usefulness into identity. If I solve things, I have value. That is why some people cannot relax when something is wrong. They need to intervene. They need to fix it. They need to control the situation. Not only to help you, but because an unresolved problem activates something inside them. Then there is another kind of person, and they may be the most interesting of all. The people who fix things simply because they are fascinated by understanding them. They enjoy discovering how something works, how it broke, why it failed, what piece was missing. And when they fix something, they don't just feel relief, they feel fascination. They are the people who take apart something that is already fixed, just to understand it better. The ones who ask questions nobody asked. The ones who explain unnecessary details with genuine enthusiasm. Because for them, the process of understanding is fun. And spending time around people like that can deeply change the way you think. Because without even realizing it, they teach you something important. Not knowing how to do something does not mean you will never know how to do it. It only means you don't understand it yet. That may sound small, but psychologically, it is enormous. Because the feeling of, "I'm not the kind of person who can do this," begins to disappear. And another thought appears. Maybe I just haven't practiced enough yet. And maybe, while listening to this, you are identifying with one of the two sides. Maybe you are the person who always fixes things, and you never really wondered where that came from. Or maybe you are the person who always needs to ask for help, and that makes you feel insufficient. But here is something important. Outsourcing everything is usually not a lack of capacity. It is usually a story, an accumulation of experiences where you learned that problems were too big, too complex, or too dangerous to face alone. And the important thing is, that is not permanent. Because self-efficacy does not appear all at once. It is built, with small things, tightening a screw, making that pending call, trying to solve something before asking for help, staying a few more minutes in front of the problem instead of running away immediately. That is where it starts. Because every small experience where you do something and it works changes, just slightly, the way your brain sees itself. And over time, that accumulation changes your identity. You are no longer someone waiting to be saved. You start becoming someone who participates, someone who tries, someone who learns, someone who adjusts, someone who insists. And maybe that is what really separates the people who seem capable of fixing everything. Not that they have less fear, but that they learned fear does not mean they have to stop. Because in the end, almost everything that seems impossible to fix today was once just something nobody understood yet. And maybe the difference between the people who collapse in front of a problem and the people who eventually solve it is this. One sees an ending. The other sees the beginning of something that can still be understood.